You know how it is, right? Sometimes everything looks fine from the outside, but behind the scenes, there are things that just don't feel quite right. The team is still strong, still competitive, but there are details that start to worry you a little. And as a fan, you can feel when something needs to be adjusted before it turns into a bigger problem. That's exactly the kind of moment we're seeing right now. And we have some important factors to discuss, so come with me and I'll tell you everything. But first, click the like button and write in the comments, "Go Eagles." Now, let's get straight into it. There's no denying what Jalen Hurts has accomplished in Philadelphia. Since becoming the full-time starter, he has elevated this franchise to elite status. We're talking about a quarterback who has gone 57-25 in the regular season, 6-4 in the playoffs, accounted for 21 total touchdowns to just 3 interceptions in the postseason, and led this team to a Super Bowl victory while winning Super Bowl MVP. That's not just good, that's historic. You can legitimately argue he's the best quarterback this franchise has ever had when you stack his resume against names like Donovan McNabb and Randall Cunningham. But here's where things start to shift. Despite all that success, the 2025 season exposed cracks, especially on offense. While the defense remained elite and Saquon Barkley delivered a record-breaking 2,000-plus yard rushing campaign, the offense became frustratingly inconsistent, predictable, clunky. At times, completely out of sync. And according to multiple sources inside the organization, some of that responsibility falls directly on Hurts. This isn't speculation. This comes from people inside the building. There are concerns about his reluctance to adapt, concerns about his resistance to certain schematic changes, and one of the biggest talking points? His hesitation to operate under center. Now think about that for a second. In today's NFL, versatility is everything. Being able to execute play action, disguise formations, and keep defenses guessing is critical. But Hurts has reportedly pushed back on changes that would expand the offense, including taking more snaps under center because he prefers to keep the defense in front of him rather than turning his back during play action. That preference might make him more comfortable, but it also limits what the offense can become. And it doesn't stop there. Sources also point to moments where Hurts has diverted from the game plan, changing plays at the line more than some within the organization are comfortable with. While autonomy is something great quarterbacks often have, there are instances where teammates allegedly didn't even know what play was coming out of the huddle. That's not just a minor issue. That affects timing, chemistry, and trust across the entire offense. There's also the ongoing struggle against zone defenses. While Hurts has improved statistically in some areas, the impact plays just aren't there. Against man coverage, he's dominant. Against zone, things slow down. The anticipation, the timing, the willingness to attack the middle of the field, those are areas that still raise concerns. And when teams lean heavily into zone, it doesn't just affect Hurts. It impacts weapons like A.J. Brown, whose production drops significantly in those situations. Now, let's talk about leadership, because this is where things get even more complex. Hurts is known for his calm, composed demeanor. He's never too high, never too low. That's part of what makes him great in a pressure-filled city like Philadelphia. But that same personality can create distance. According to sources, his steely resolve can sometimes hurt connectivity within the locker room. There was even a quote from a team source that went viral, questioning his body language, his coachability, and whether players always feel he's fully bought in. Now, to be fair, that kind of mentality has also been compared to legends like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. That obsessive drive for greatness isn't always easy to deal with. Not everyone responds well to that level of intensity. So the question becomes, is this a flaw, or is this what greatness looks like? Because we've seen both sides. When Hurts has had strong coaching, like Shane Steichen or Kellen Moore, he's thrived. When he's been challenged, he's responded. But in 2025, with Kevin Patullo as offensive coordinator, things regressed. The offense dropped from 8th to 24th in total yardage, and there were reports that players began to lose confidence in the system. At the same time, there were tensions between Hurts and Kellen Moore regarding new concepts like motion and shifts. Hurts was willing to experiment, but if results didn't come quickly, he reportedly reverted back to what he was comfortable with. That pattern right there might be the biggest concern of all, because in the NFL, if you don't evolve, defenses will catch up, and when they do, everything becomes harder. The encouraging part? There are signs that Hurts is becoming more open to change, and that could be the turning point. But make no mistake, 2026 is shaping up to be a defining year. Not just for Hurts, but for the future of the entire franchise. Because despite all his success, despite the Super Bowl, despite the wins, the NFL is a business. And history has shown us that no one is untouchable in this league. So now, I want to hear from you. Does this situation around Jalen Hurts concern you as an Eagles fan? Or do you believe this is just part of what comes with having a franchise quarterback striving for greatness? And this is where everything starts to come together. Because when you look at the full picture, this isn't just about scheme, coaching, or even locker room dynamics. This is about identity. Who are the Eagles offensively moving forward, and more importantly, who is Jalen Hurts going to be within that identity? Because one of the most surprising developments from the 2025 season was the noticeable drop in Hurts' rushing production. This is a quarterback who built his dominance on being a dual-threat weapon, someone defenses had to account for on every single snap. But last season, we saw a career low in both rushing attempts and rushing yards. Now, that raises a serious question. Was that a strategic decision from the coaching staff to protect him? Or was that Hurts himself being reluctant to run? There are indications that defenses adjusted, forcing him to stay in the pocket and beat them with his arm. But at the same time, when you take away that rushing threat, you're fundamentally changing what makes him special. You're making the offense easier to defend. And that ties directly into another major issue: predictability. We saw a significant drop in pre-snap motion from 2024 to 2025. The Eagles went from being one of the more creative teams in that area to ranking near the bottom of the league. That's not just a random stat. That's a reflection of an offense that became easier to read, easier to diagnose, and ultimately easier to stop. And when you combine that with Hurts's tendency to stick with what he's comfortable with, you start to understand why multiple sources describe the offense as calcified. That word says everything. It means stuck, rigid, not evolving. Now here's the part that Eagles fans really need to pay attention to. Hurts is heading into yet another transition at offensive coordinator. This will be his 6th play caller since entering the league in 2020. Think about how difficult that is for any quarterback. Different systems, different philosophies, different expectations year after year. Consistency matters, stability matters, and yet, despite all that instability, Hurts has still found ways to win. That's why there are people inside the building who still fully believe in him. And the biggest supporter of all? Owner Jeffrey Lurie. Lurie didn't hesitate when talking about Hurts. He praised his dedication, his commitment to winning, and made it clear that he believes in him as the face of the franchise. That kind of backing is huge. Because in the NFL, when ownership is behind you, you're going to get opportunities to prove yourself. But even with that support, nothing is guaranteed. Because here's the reality that nobody can ignore. If Hurts delivers in 2026, if he adapts, evolves, and takes this offense to another level, then there's no debate. He remains the franchise quarterback for years to come. But if the same issues persist, If the offense continues to struggle with creativity, if the tension behind the scenes doesn't improve, if the limitations against certain defenses remain, then the conversation changes. And maybe not in a way fans are ready for. There are already whispers about the strength of upcoming quarterback classes. There's already acknowledgement that the NFL moves fast, and we've seen this organization make bold decisions before. Carson Wentz was moved. Doug Peterson was let go not long after delivering a Super Bowl. Nothing is off the table in this league. So what we're really watching right now is a pivotal moment. Not a collapse, not a crisis, but a turning point. Jalen Hurts has already proven he can win at the highest level. He's already proven he can lead this team to a championship. But now the challenge is different. Can he adjust when the league adjusts to him? Can he embrace discomfort to unlock a more dynamic version of this offense? Can he balance his natural instincts with the structure that coaches are trying to implement? Because if he can, the Eagles aren't just contenders again, they might be unstoppable. But if he can't, then all of these small cracks we're talking about right now could turn into something much bigger down the line. So as we wrap this up, I want you to really think about everything we discussed today. Is Jalen Hurts being unfairly criticized for things that come with greatness? Or are these legitimate concerns that could impact the future of the Eagles? And if you've made it this far, make sure you subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and click on the video that's on your screen right now, because all the latest Eagles news and behind-the-scenes updates, you're only going to find it right here.